My name is Nancy McLaughlin-Walter with the University of Virginia School of Medicine, Division of Perceptual Studies. And my talk today is on body mapping the somatic experience, somatization of the distant healing intention. Initially, the purpose of the study is to test the index instrument, which I constructed to examine somatization occurring during the distant healing intention session. More specifically, I'm interested in determining if the somatization experience can be synchronous between the practitioner and the healee. First, I needed to determine if somatization was occurring, and if so, would I find synchronization and reporting of the bodily location. The somatic experience of the distant healing intention session is rarely explored outside of identifying corresponding areas of pain, injury, and illness between the practitioner and the healee. And this body mapping index and the corresponding questions are designed to specifically measure the distant healing experience as uncoupled for this testing phase. And then later, I expect this index will be used to explore for correlations between coupled experiences. I am looking to garner a greater understanding of where the somatization of the DHI session is expressed on the body, and not so much if the practitioner is mirroring pain or discomfort or intuiting what areas of the body are affected by illness. Some of the questions I have for this work are, is there a shared experience occurring? If so, where within the body are these experiences occurring? And can these experiences be independently verified? My sample included both distant healing intention practitioners and healees or sitters. And I solicited for participation through social media, snowballing efforts, and there was a link up on the Division of Perceptual Studies website. I ended with a sample of 624, but only 339 of them had filled out approximately half of the questions. So even if they only finished up to the point of the body mapping index, I included them in these results. Approximately half of the sample were practitioners, and their length of experience was between 1 and 40 years. And some of them participated in sessions as both a practitioner and a participant. And then approximately 20% were only in a session as a participant, so the receiving the sitter. And the participation in sessions varied from once to on a frequent basis, and they were about equally distributed. Some of my questions are designed to probe the somatic expression within the context of the distant healing intention experience. And this is through utilizing a visual representation. These questions relate to sensations that can be considered idiopathic in nature, arising from the experience and not directly related to symptoms of disease, yet are expressed as a physical representation of an otherwise non-physical and non-local experience. All of the body mapping questions were prefaced with, if this is not something you experienced during the session, you may skip to the next question. The body map is sectioned into 7 distal zones. 1, the top of the head and the scalp. 2, the head, neck, and throat. 3, the chest and upper arms. 4 being the midsection, lower arms, hands, wrist, groin, and hips. 5, the leg above the knee, and 6, the lower leg below the knee, and 7 was the ankle and feet. Each distal area is coded by a D with the corresponding zone number. And the body map is then divided midline laterally from head to feet to indicate left and right side. And they are coded as L1, L2, forward facing. Participants can select up to 10 surface areas on the body map. And this number is a set parameter by the online data collection site. So an example of this function would be if I were a practitioner and reported a feeling of oneness and merging in the chest area on the left side, this would provide a numerical location of D3 and L1. And if the sitter chooses a position of D7, L2, the function would then be the absolute value of D3 minus D7 minus L1 minus L2 to equal a distance of 4. The premise of the function is that the closer to 0 value the output is, the greater the overlap in the shared experience. More testing is needed to determine if a separate measure of the lateral areas is necessary. For instance, the experience might not be isolated to one side of the body, particularly around the head and neck region. So some preliminary results I found that, as we can see from the thermal representation of the one question, I felt a oneness or merging of consciousness, mind, feelings, or physically, or a connectedness with another person or being on the following areas of my body. Both the distant healing intention practitioners and the sitters independently reported the somatic experience of a sense of oneness emerging as concentrated in the upper body, and most strongly in the chest and head. And keep in mind that these were uncoupled solicitations. So someone answering the survey would not have come in with the expectation that their healer or the sitter that they had just worked on or had worked on previously would also be in there. When asked if they felt a joy or pleasant sensation, their reporting was mainly in the upper chest area and the head. So distal areas 1, 2, and some 3. When asked, they felt a release of energy. It was primarily in the distal regions of 1, bordering on 2. And this might be because of the way I posed the question as being expressed as laughter, tears, or giggling, which are typically come out of the face. So that might have contributed to the choosing of that specific area. So I'm going to look a little closer at that the next time I use this instrument. When asked if they felt an enlargement or a retraction of a body part, it's primarily around the head, hands, and the feet, which to me indicates that they were choosing more the upper body and extremities over the larger organ areas. And when asked if they had a feeling of being touched by someone or something, it's primarily around the head and chest and the hands. This might be suggestive of reaching out to the healer. or it could be expressed as an embrace. Some of my initial findings are still under review. So I did ask additional questions. I did not find any evidence to indicate that lateral isolations of experiences would yield significance, but this should be tested in coupled experiences in a future design. Distal regions were identified across several clusters, which will help to reduce those regions from 7 to 5. And those were identified as the head and neck, and then the upper body of chest and arms, the lower body of abdomen and groin, and then the leg region below the thighs and above the ankles, and then 5 being the foot region. I am finding correlations between the additional questions that were posed and the index questions. For example, participants' rating of their physical health and having a felt sense of merging oneness in the body was found to be correlated significantly with a small effect. And this indicates that the strength of the participants' health rating correlated with their course reporting of oneness or merging. And additional testing is suggested for understanding this correlation. I also asked some belief questions related to their personal physical health and mental health as being influenced by anomalous forces such as remote healing. And then I asked if those same forces could then affect others other than themselves. And I'm still looking to see if there was a difference between whether or not they felt that they could be influenced or that others could be influenced. This might indicate, some control, wanting to have control over what is affecting them and what is not. And I will look further into that to understand what that might mean. Future applications of this would be to map the embodied psi experience and understand the shared psi experience of the distant healing intention relationship, and to determine proximity or overlap between the DHI practitioner and the sitter. And I want to thank you for listening, and I will take questions now if you have any.